The LA Kings enter the offseason with the same questions they had during the regular season. Is there a battle brewing in the Rams offensive line in advance of training camp? And a special message for LA Galaxy fans who think the solution is to fire Greg Vanney. Good morning, I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos Morning Report. It is May 1st, 2023. I'm sick of traveling to Portland. I can't wait for this assignment to end. Whatever. We do know, by the way, who the Lakers' next opponent is going to be in the NBA playoffs. Yesterday, Steph Curry went nuts. He dropped 50 as the Golden State Warriors eliminated Sacramento 120-100. Kings fans started chanting, "Let's go Lakers" in the second half. So the least we can do is oblige them. Game 1 of the best of 7 series is up in San Francisco tomorrow at 7 p.m. We're going to talk more about that tomorrow because we need to do a little bit more studying so we know what we're talking about. In the meantime, if you want to be in the know about LA sports, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And by all means, comment. There's always good stuff to talk about when it comes to LA sports. Yesterday at the Ravine, looking at the scoreboard, the Dodgers swept the St. Louis Cardinals. They beat them yesterday 6-3. It was Noah Syndergaard's first victory of the year. Meanwhile, today, Philadelphia comes to town. They're going to play the Dodgers at 7. Tony Gonsolin makes his second start of the year. He's 0-0. Taijuan Walker is starting for the Phils. He's 2-1 with a 4.97 ERA. When the Kings were eliminated a couple of days ago, I threw out a couple of very simple explanations as to why they lost the series. You know, the primary one was they couldn't stop Leon Draisaitl. He had a point at least in every one of the 6 games. And also the power play, or I should say the penalty kill, was also a big part of it. Edmonton scored 9 goals on the power play. But it got me to thinking, were the Kings irresponsible? Because if you think about it, in an average NHL game, a team should get 3 power plays. The Kings only went into the penalty box 15 times during the course of a 6-game series. That's not 3, that's 2.5. So the upshot is that they didn't play irresponsibly when it was even man-to-man, 5-on-5. It's just that you're looking at superior skating ability with Connor McDavid and Draisaitl, which proved to be the difference. But in the bigger picture, so in other words, the Kings defenders weren't irresponsible. They weren't committing a bunch of stupid penalties. If you pull the camera back, goalie Joonas Korpisalo, he started the series hot and then just dropped like a boulder, really just landed with a thud. He got pulled from a game. He coughed up a 3-goal lead. He allowed a bunch of goals in the season finale. And so he's an unrestricted free agent. And now you're sitting there saying, wait a second, does that make the number one priority for the Kings goalie once again? Because they didn't trust Phoenix Copley to start in net during the playoffs. Cal Peterson, the so-called goalie of the future, was struggling in the minor leagues last we checked. And oh, by the way, it's not just goalie that's an issue. What about left-handed defense? That was a big need for the Kings going into the season. When they acquired Korpisalo from Columbus, they also acquired a left-handed defenseman, Vladislav Gavrikov, who is also an unrestricted free agent. They're almost back to square one. I mean, Coach Todd McClellan is saying, hey, we got to reflect and improve, hint, hint, Quentin Byfield. But at the end of the day, you've got the same holes on your roster that you did almost all season long. Now, if you're saying, well, what are they going to have? What I can tell you is that they're sort of against the salary cap. They have $2.5 million in cap space. And oh, by the way, their unrestricted free agents also include Alex Edler. And their restricted free agents, which would still count against the cap, include Gabriel Velarde, who had a career year, and Rasmus Kapari. So what would you do if you were Rob Blake? Clearly, Rob Blake is trying to accelerate. We know the Kings are no longer rebuilding. He was trying to accelerate that last year when he traded for Kevin Fiala. The Kings, once again, this year do not have a first-round draft pick in the NHL draft. The gut feeling is maybe they try to rent a goalie with another big trade during the summer. That way you're lowering some of your salary cap burden while adding, hopefully, a damn fine netminder. Because again, I don't think the Kings really have enough faith in Phoenix Copley for a playoff run. And Cal Peterson, he's lucky to be pulling a check. The Rams return 4 of their 5 starters on the offensive line for 2022. Yeah. The opening is at guard. 1 guard spot for 2022. And after the Rams took Steve Avila in the second round, if you remember, we were talking about it during the draft. I was originally wondering if LA would start Logan Bruss, a second-year player who missed his rookie year with an injury, start Logan Bruss at 1 guard spot, Avila at the other. But what if I'm wrong? What if the coaching staff is saying we have 4 starters returning, the only one's missing is a guard, we don't normally start rookies, but maybe Avila really does have the goods. Maybe the offensive line for the Rams doesn't have Bruss and Avila, but it's Bruss versus Avila for the 1 open spot that we know is open on the Rams offensive line. Let me know what you think in the comments thread. Meanwhile, I'm totally sick about talking about the NFL draft. Grades, reviews, they're all coming in. I'm glancing over it. My eyelids are fluttering. I've spent so much time talking about the NFL draft, I just don't care anymore. But the Rams still do not have a full roster. You could have anywhere from 60 players to 90. The more, the better. Your game day roster is 48, 53 on the active roster, whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is that as of Sunday night, the Rams signed an additional 20 undrafted free agents. I'd be lying to you if I said if I knew any of them were any good. I have no clue. What I can tell you is which signings matter and which signings tend to give you an idea of what the Rams think they need. So for example, special teams took a hit in the offseason. They lost their punter. They lost their kicker. They lost their long snapper. Well, they drafted a punter. We know that. What I can tell you is that they signed 2 kickers, Christopher Dunn of North Carolina State and Tanner Brown of Oklahoma State. So that appears to be what would be the training camp battle to kick. They also did take care of long snapper. They signed Alex Ward of Central Florida. They also went heavy, of all the signings, you put special teams aside, they also went heavy on defense. They signed 4 linebackers, 4 corners, 4 safeties. Now that doesn't mean any of them are starters. That doesn't mean they're all going to make the team. It simply says this seems to be the Rams' priorities going into training camp. The Chargers also raided the great bin of undrafted free agents and signed 18 players as of Sunday. In that group includes a tight end, something they neglected to draft, which I thought was a priority. And by the way, it's exciting. That tight end, he's from UCLA. Ooh, local guy. Let's all be excited for Michael Ezike. He made 11 starts for the Bruins last year. He was 4th on the team in receptions with 20, including a 3-touchdown performance against crosstown rival USC. Speaking of USC, they also signed a wide receiver, Terrell Bynum, from the Trojans. He caught 16 passes and also added a touchdown. We mentioned earlier, a moment ago, about how the Rams concentrated their signings on particular positions. The Bolts, they were much more spread the wealth. They signed 1, 2 here. There was only one position that they appeared to focus on. They signed 3 cornerbacks. Take of that what you will. We'll get back to talking about the fallout from the NFL draft in a moment. I want to get this out of my system. Being a Galaxy fan, obviously it's been a frustrating year. Totally agree. There is now a movement not only to get rid of team president Chris Klein, but also to blame coach/manager Greg Vanney for everything that's going on. Now, look, there's a lot of blame to go around, especially when you consider that the Galaxy have one win in 2 months. So yes, I understand the desire for drastic change. But what quality manager is going to take this job now? The Galaxy, yeah, they have the reputation, they have the history, but the place right now is an absolute mess. What quality manager is going to accept this job knowing that team president Chris Klein could be out the door at the end of the year? Why would you do that? Would you take a job knowing that the guy hiring you was on the precipice of getting fired? Does that sound like a secure job? Of course not. A new team president, which could come in at the end of the year, would likely want to clean house. He'd want a new technical director. He'd want new scouts. He'd want a new GM. He'd want a new academy director, an analytics department, and most definitely a new coach. So why would you pack the kids, tell the wife we're moving to LA for a job that you would only have for maybe 6 months? You wouldn't. So the only person with job security at Dignity Health Sports Park right now is the mascot, Cosmo. Seriously. So no, Vanney out is not a solution, at least not yet. We mentioned that the Chargers signed a Trojan and a Bruin. For the Trojans, the undrafted free agents that were signed, we mentioned Travis Dye signing with the Jets. And we also mentioned Bynum with the Chargers. Other signings to the NFL from USC include defensive lineman Brandon Peely with Miami and offensive lineman Bobby Haskins with the Chicago Bears. Meanwhile, for UCLA, wide receiver Jake Bobo and defensive back Mo Osling signed with Seattle. Wide receiver Casimir Allen is on his way to Washington. And cornerback Azizi Hearn signs with the Raiders. Shortstop Miguel Vargas played 5 innings in Rancho Cucamonga in a weekend game, and the Dodgers were like, yep, that's enough. Let's get him the hell out of the Inland Empire. Little bit too close to San Bernardino for our taste. Let's get him back to the Ravine. So he's going to be back on the main roster, perhaps as soon as today. But Vargas will not be taking his job back as the everyday shortstop. Not immediately, anyway. It's one thing to say he's injured. It's another thing to realize the guy's hitting 125. Finally, LA Sparks training camp is opened. I say that because somebody had to. Somebody might like the WNBA. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread. What would you do if you were Rob Blake running the Kings? Who would you target? Is there a possibility of a battle in the Rams offensive line? And if you enjoyed talking with me this morning, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're talking LA sports every single day. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Corte El Queso production. Take care.